Ain't gonna let nobody
Mr.
turn
Chairman,
me around.
and to the Credentials Committee, my name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer, and I live at 626 East Lafayette Street, Ruleville, Mississippi, Sunflower County, the home of Senator James O. Eastland and Senator Stennis.
My. What a day, what a day, what a day. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around. Who would have thought that I'd be speaking in Atlantic City before the Democratic Party? Me, a sharecropper's child. Been since, I don't know. I didn't see this. Because it been since I was just a child, little girl. I knew right from wrong. I knew what was happening to us was wrong. My mama and my daddy and my brothers and my sisters, I knew we was being treated wrong. I just didn't know what I could do about it. Nobody knew what we could do about it. We worked from sun up to sundown. We didn't have enough food to eat. But we were still working them fields, picking cotton. I want you to know we never accepted it. We never accepted slavery. But just like slavery, we just couldn't leave the plantation. We was already hungry. Sunflower County, where I grew up, was just like most places in the South I knew about. Whites worked, made us work. Negroes worked the field. That's the way it was. Signs say whites only and coloreds only. And if you worked for the white folk, you had to go around the back door. That's the way it was. My mama had so many patches on her clothes was just patches and rags. One time when I was just 6 years old, I was playing by the side of the road because the cotton fields were muddy. And this white man and his big truck come by and he say, girl. I say, yes, sir. He said, girl, can you pick cotton? I looked down, looked around, wanted to make sure he was talking to me, and I said, I don't know. And I looked down because we're never supposed to look no white person in the eye. I don't know. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I tell you what, he said, I'll give you some things that you can get from the commissary store, you know, like Cracker Jacks and sardines, maybe some daddy wide legs and some gingerbread cake. Gingerbread cake. My eyes got big. I never had no gingerbread cake, let alone no Cracker Jacks or sardines. So I went out in the field and I began to pick them cotton like he wanted. So at 6 years old, my first week, I was able to pick 30 pounds of cotton. Little did I know, that man was trapping me into working. He gave me some of them things, but I was always in his debt. See, they weren't free. I would later learn that man's name, E.W. Brandon. He was kin to the former governor of Mississippi, General C. Brandon. Ain't nothing was given us. By the time I was 13, I was picking 200 and 300 pounds of cotton a week. No matter how much cotton I picked, I always owed the commissary. So did my people, my family. You owe the commissary, which was on the plantation, you know. And on the plantation owner owned the fields, and he owned the cotton, and he owned the commissary. And we just worked and worked. They charged us for everything they gave us, even the seeds to plant the cotton and the vegetables that they was going to take to market and make a profit on. They made me stop school at the 6th grade, but when I went to school, my favorite subjects was reading and spelling, but I did all right in arithmetic too. So one year, I learned how to calculate. And I calculated that year, based on my 14 brothers and my 5 sisters' work, we had picked 15 tons of cotton. And I figured that plantation owner, he owed us $4,000. But when we got to settling time, didn't matter about my receipts, and it didn't matter about what I had calculated. They only paid my daddy $200 for the whole year. Said we owe money for clothes and food and seed. Nobody in Mississippi was gonna help us. We was colored. Didn't nobody care. There was nobody we could appeal to. Only folk we had was us. So folks on the plantation shared and gave what they could to each other, because that's how we survived. One day, somebody came to me and said, I think I like you, Miss Stein. Perry Hamer. Oh, how I love that man. We called him Pat. We worked the plantation together, but when we decided to get married, we moved from that Mr. Brandon's plantation and went on to Marlowe's plantation. We worked and we worked, and we was together for quite a few years. And even though I got pregnant 2 times, 2 times I had babies, they was bone dead. They call us stillborn. But we kept trying. And then they said there was a knot on our stomach, you know, and that it was a small tumor. And only thing they had to do was just take out the tumor, and I'd be able to have babies. So I went. They took my womb from me. They took my womb. They did things like this to Negro women down here in Mississippi. They did it so much. They call it a Mississippi appendectomy, whatever that is. All I know is they took from me. They had no right to do that. Pat, he loved me anyway. And he said, it's okay, Fannie Lou, we'll just adopt. So we did. We adopted 2 beautiful little girls. One's name was Dorothy Jean, and the other name's Virgil Lee. We love them like they was our own blood. We loved them girls, and they loved us. And we was a family, and we worked the plantation together. The year after we adopted Virgin Lee, something horrible happened. Right, Mississippi, Virgin Lee came to us, and next thing I knew, Emmett Till, come down from Chicago, was lynched. That boy was only 14 years old. Some white woman claimed he whistled at her. I don't believe he whistled at that woman. They lynched that child. They took him from his family's home and they beat him. They tied a weight around him, shot him in the head, and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. By the time they found his body, it was waterlogged, full of the water. Miss Till, his mama, was a woman of courage. I tell you, she was a woman of courage. She wanted the world to see what they had done to her baby. I don't know, something inside me broke that day. Although that white woman's husband and his brother admitted to killing that boy, the white jury still let him off. You know, at that time, there were more lynchings in Mississippi than there were anywhere else in the country. I don't know. I had known a lot of folk in my time to get lynched, but something about that lynching. You know, Billie Holiday, she sang a song called Strange Fruit about that lynching. That's where I believe they killed her too. Killing a 14-year-old boy for so-called whistling at a white woman. I just said to myself, I hope for a chance that I could really lash out and say what I had to say about what was going on down here in Mississippi. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought today, my Lord, today I got that chance. Did y'all hear my story? Today. Well, let me tell you what I didn't say about what happened. Y'all know Miss Mary Tucker, who encouraged me to register to vote. That's a good woman. Did y'all also know Miss Tucker let us stay in her house? Mr. Marlowe kicked me off the plantation when I registered to vote. He told me, he said, Fannie Lou, I need you to go down there and remove your name from the rolls. And I said, Mr. Marlowe, I didn't go down there to register for you. I went down there to register for me. I thought he was confused. He told me I had to get my things and go. So Miss Tucker let me stay with her. Next thing I know, Pap and the girls came to the Tuckers too. He said, Fannie Lou and Miss Tucker, Mr. and Mrs. Tucker, y'all got to get up out of here. You got to get up out of here. I have a bad feeling about this thing. I got a bad feeling. So he took us all the night after I left. 16 shots were shot up in the Tucker's home. They thought I was still there. They wanted to kill me just because I tried to register to vote. I thank God I wasn't there. But they did send a message. They sent a message that if Negroes thought they was going to vote, they would risk their life. I tried to protect my family, and the other Negroes in the plantation. So I went away for a while. For 2 months, I lived no one place. People let me stay and hide me. Through that time, I studied the Constitution. I was away from my pap and I was away from my girls. And then one morning I woke up. I said, I'm sick of running. I'm sick of running. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing except want to register to vote. I went back to Ruleville. Couldn't go back to the plantation. So I found a home, a whole rundown house. Me and Pat and the girls, we moved in. Then the next day, after we moved in, I went down to the courthouse. Yes, I did. In Indianola. And I tried to pass the voter registration test. Do you know? 1 month later, I found out I passed that test. You know why I took that test? I said to myself, there was nothing more they could do to me. They already done fired me. I didn't have no job they could take. They couldn't put me out my house. I didn't have no house. I'm living in this old shack. Mr. Marlowe had already fired Pat, so my Pat, after working for that man for 30 years, had no job. Neither one of us could find work. You know, it was SNCC that helped us get through them times. They collected their pennies and their quarters and everything they had, scraped it together and was able to give us, like many other folk who dared to register to vote, $10 a month. That's what me and Pat lived on. Let me tell you, I really appreciated SNCC. What SNCC stand for? Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. That's who they were. They believed that the people in the community ought to have a say over what was occurring to them politically. You know, like the rules of how white and black interacted with each other. SNCC wanted to provide us voter training, and they did that, and they wanted the ordinary people to become active citizens, and they got us involved. There are other groups that was sometimes coming to Mississippi, groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference led by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and then there was the NAACP. They mostly did their fighting in the courts. They rarely came down to Mississippi to talk to the farmers and the sharecroppers, but SNCC, they came down to help us. I was so pleased with the work that SNCC did that I joined them. I liked them because they didn't make us feel bad about the way we talked, and they didn't make us look down on ourselves like some other folk do. They was only kids, you know, most of them high school, college. But they saw something that was wrong, and they took a stand. And they treated us like we were special. We loved them. Yes, we did. We loved them. What little we had, we shared with them. We just felt like, you know, we could talk to them, and we trusted them, and they took care of us. I can tell you, throughout the South, but especially Mississippi, police and white seemed to do everything they could to prevent the Negro and the colored folk from voting. They arrested folk. They set their homes on fire. There was lynchings and beatings. Seemed like they got worse the more SNCC registered folk. Well, after I passed that test, wasn't like I could just go down and vote, because in the whole state of Mississippi, there was this thing called a poll tax you had to pay. Every voter that passed the voter registration test, they also had to pass a poll tax. I didn't have the money for the poll tax. You know, I passed that registration test twice, but I still couldn't vote. The other thing they did was if you passed the registration test, they published your name in the newspaper. So people like the Ku Klux Klan and the White Citizens Council could target you. It was hard. It was hard. My family, other folk in SNCC, we was all treated like criminals. We was treated like criminals. All we wanted to do was to vote. This ain't America, because in America, we should never have had to turn out the lights before dark, because we was afraid of cars passing by our house all times of night, trucks and cars full of white men with guns, and then they come by with their pickup trucks all making noise, and sometimes they have them engines revving up, going all slow. And my girls, they'd be hiding under the bed, and me and Pap would just hold each other. I ain't gonna lie to you, I was scared. I was scared, Pap was scared, but I didn't let that stop me. And Pap was by my side. I started traveling all over Mississippi, teaching folk about how to register to vote. And I also raised money for SNCC. They especially like when I sang this little song. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I did my best to let my light shine. Whenever the people needed to be inspired, I'd say, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. But the white folks weren't so happy about my shining all over the place. I told y'all in my testimony today about how they beat me. No. Sometimes I don't understand. How could you do somebody like that? Let me tell you what led up to the arrest. All the thing wanted to do was to vote. All I wanted to do was to vote. But they beat me unmercifully. They beat me till my hand was navy blue, because I kept trying to protect my side where I had polio, and they beat me from Sunday till Wednesday. They even brought in Negro prisoners to beat me, and they threatened them their life if they refused. And when they didn't want to beat hard, they tell them to beat harder with chains. They beat me because I inspired folks, because I taught them how to pass the registration test. And I told them they could vote. And I was a spokesperson for SNCC. police did that to me because I was a SNCC, Mississippi organizer. I wasn't the only one in jail. There were other SNCC people who were organizers and worked to register folk. Then I don't know where it came from, but Mr. Guat came to get us out of jail. I called them lawns. He came down there with money too. He was gonna just pay to get us out of jail. You know what the police did? They arrested him too. Put him in jail. Charged him with disturbing the peace and resisting arrest. Mississippi didn't care. Wasn't until Andrew Young from Dr. King's organization got involved that SNCC members were let go. They released us all. I would later find out that Medgar Evers, the NAACP field secretary, he was murdered right in front of his house the same day as they let us out of jail. One of the first FBI investigations of police brutality happened right here in Waiona jail. It happened because of what happened. Federal government filed brutality charges against the police. 6 months after they filed, there was a trial down here in Jackson, where the Capitol was. Me and all the other workers, we told that white jury everything that I said today. Guess what they said? That jury of all white men, it didn't even take them an hour. They said them police officers didn't do nothing wrong. 2 girls had been shot dead. Me and other people were beat. But yet, police didn't do nothing wrong. You know, I'm permanently damaged, permanently, from what them beatings did to me. I lost eyesight because they say there's a blood clot somewhere in my head, and my kidneys, they suffered back here because they beat me so much on my back. But I tell you what, despite all these aches and pains I suffer, ain't nothing like the ache and pain I feel in my heart for my people. I wasn't gonna let nobody turn me around. Nobody was gonna turn me around. The news of what was occurring in Mississippi, it made people like my Senator Eastland, you know, my representative, he looked bad. He looked bad. So the man that was all about law and order and did not believe in government handouts, he proposed some legislation out here. All the poor people in Mississippi gonna get $25 million. You know, I didn't believe it. I think he just did it to try to squash some of the unrest that was happening down here. Bill didn't pass anyway. You know what else he said? He said all the Negroes working on his plantations would have a home for life. Huh. I said it then and I'll say it now. Senator Eastland hadn't ever done nothing for nobody poor. Not in this county. Not in this county I live in. So-called generosity. The people on his plantation as poor as I am. Yeah, they are. the people on Sunflower County with all these different plantations. We work the land, and the white folk, they just keep getting richer. You know, sometimes they will let us borrow a little bit of money, but then they make us pay twice as much back. That's how they do us. That's how it come when it comes settling time. They say we owe them, no matter how much money we make them. I've been right here in Sunflower County since I was 2 years old. Nothing free. Nothing free. We just stay poor down here in the South. I know it sounds like I'm just complaining, but I just need folks to know what are we dealing with here in Mississippi. I'm going home on the morning train. 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 My mama used to sing that song to me. She sang that song to me to try to ease my soul when the hunger pains would just ache so bad I couldn't sleep. That's why people like Senator Eastland just mean. He also proposing money to other countries, just millions and millions and millions of dollars. Makes me sick. Charity is supposed to begin at home before you start spreading money all over the place. Something else happened after that beating I got. A few months later, there was this big march on Washington. Thousands of people covered the Washington, D.C. They came to D.C. and they covered the Lincoln Memorial Grounds, and that young Dr. King stood up there and said he had a dream. I would have loved to have been there. But I was still recovering from them beatings I got in the Wauner jail. By that time, SNCC had been working to get us voting rights for 2 years. 2 years. Police was still beating folk. People still getting lynched. Politicians still lying. One good thing happened when we started really pressing to get the right to vote. Didn't matter what class you were in. You know, we had some colored folk that were upper class, and some, like the school teachers, they called them middle class, and they like to say we didn't have no class, but if you ask me, we had more class than a lot of them. Treated each other better. But as time went on, we was all in the same boat. Almost 1 million Negroes were registered to vote in Mississippi, but only 30,000 were voting. I got that wrong. Sometimes my brain, it just don't always work right. I think it's because I'm too tired trying to remember all these facts. There were 1 million Negroes in the state of Mississippi. I wish all of them were registered to vote, but they weren't. We have no idea how many actually voted. because of all of the various things they would do, even to the men coming back from war. Both World War I and World War II, they do horrible things to them. Many of them were lynched. That's why I helped to found the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party. And that's why we came here to Atlantic City to demand to be seated at this convention. Prior to 1962, I didn't know nothing about how to vote. Nothing. And here I am. Here I am. A little old sharecropper from Roosevelt, Mississippi, in Atlantic City at the Democratic Convention, telling my story about how things are in Mississippi. Can't tell me there ain't no God. He don't always come when you want him, but is always on time. Sometimes it seemed like to tell the truth today is to run the risk of being killed. Well, if I fall, I'm gonna fall 5 feet, 4 inches forward in the fight for freedom. I ain't backing up. I'm gonna let my little light shine. I'm gonna let it shine. Hope y'all had a good evening. Y'all stay safe. And you register to vote. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.